Hello, everybody. Welcome to this explainer session with Tsvetan, wherein we are going to discuss everything about the Fabric Operations Console. Without any further ado, let's get started. So, Tsvetan is the managing and founding partner at Sanofi, and yeah, the first question which we would like you to address is that could you start by introducing yourself and your role in the Hyperledger Fabric project, particularly related to the Fabric operations console?
Yeah, thanks, Pradham. Yes, my name is Tsvetan Georgiev. Thanks for the short introduction, Pradham. I started getting involved in the community a long time ago, since the beginning, and I was pretty much into Fabric. Just because I see that as a great technology to apply and use and the enterprise level. So my background is more into the enterprise and technology development. So my curiosity out of how this technology can help and distributor ledger technologies in particular to the enterprise was a leading um, topic for me at that point of time and still is. So I got involved through my career into multiple projects uh, within different industries. And one of the biggest challenges we've been facing all the time was about deploying, orchestrating of these networks. It's just because usually those things are very complicated, running on different infrastructures, different clouds, sometimes on premise and whatnot. So that's how I got involved in the Fabric Operation Console. That is a great tool to, in fact, orchestrate, manage, and govern Fabric-based networks. So I had a lot of experience with it, and of course there were some missing opportunities, missing features there, capabilities. So I had the pleasure and the opportunity to contribute with my team some of very essential um, features that I'll be talking about in a couple of minutes.
Cool. So, yeah, I think we have a veteran who has been associated with Fabric since a long time, and yeah, they've contributed pretty much many meaningful features, and they've dealt with it firsthand. So, for example, I am unfamiliar with Fabric at the moment, and particularly Fabric Operations Console. So,
Mhm.
could you explain me the conscience behind it? Why was it introduced in the first place? What were the key reasons behind why it was developed in the
Yeah,
hypothesis?
yeah,
Like the yeah.
yes, of course. So um, I'll jump to the next slide here. So before talking about features and overview of the console and what it is, um, so first of all, this is a Hyperledger Labs project that's been contributed, if I believe, in 2021. 2021 by IBM. So it is the same, almost the same piece of software that actually powers the IBM blockchain platform. So back in 2021, IBM decided to donate or open source that to and be part of the Hyperledger project. So it is very open. It has nothing to do or be dependent on any cloud. Actually, you can deploy the Fabric Operation Console anywhere. It can work also outside different cloud, like network orchestration tools like Kubernetes. Can also run on Docker containers. Of course, it's been a long time since the contribution happened, and some features actually got contributed through that time. So I explained as we go. So what the Fabric Operation Console allows you to do, actually, you can deploy with it. Let's start with very essential thing here to mention that is very important. So first of all, it's made to run on Kubernetes. This is where it gets the full when the user gets the full feature set of the console. So that's why actually the star here is a bit of confusion, even myself in the beginning, about where and how you can deploy that console and how actually it works. But essentially, you can deploy it on Kubernetes, and this is where you get the full capability of not just managing and orchestrating Hyperledger Fabric network components, but also to deploy them. So of course, you could deploy those Fabric peers, sorters, and whatnot onto anywhere. It doesn't restrict you to actually import and still manage those nodes in the Fabric Operation Console, because one of the key features is actually the governance of the channels, the governance of the network. I'm referring essentially to very basic features like adding organizations to a channel, removing organization to a channel, voting on, getting the to satisfy of course, the policy of who can actually govern those channels by adding and removing organizations and all of that. So essentially, it is made to be run not as a central piece where you have control on all nodes into a network, but rather as a distributed environment, to run in a distributed environment where every organization will have their own instance of the Fabric Operation Console to perform the governance of the channel and the network. Of course, that also implies to the chain code, where in order to upgrade or to deploy a chain code, you would need a specific set of signatures by the participating organization in order for that deployment to go through. You have very convenient features to actually use and operate Hyperledger Fabric CA servers, where you can register in row, view, and delete users. Of course, that is exposed in the UI. So of the features I'm talking about here, there's also an API behind it that you can use or use it through the UI. Essentially, it's being used as a Fabric administrator.
Sure.
It is very convenient to go through the UI, unless you are trying to manage, of course, a huge volume of nodes. And as I explained, it is made to be used by each individual organization. So usually the UI is very convenient way to bootstrap and to manage the network without need to have a very deep technical understanding on the network or on the cloud features or networking, because everything's been taken care of internally. So of course you can you have a wallet. We call that a Hyperledger Fabric Console wallet, where you can manage your identities, and I'll deep dive a bit into the wallet in a couple of minutes as well. See what are the options there, how those identities are stored. Essentially, those identities are the private keys and certificates of the users that have the authorization to govern the nodes. And also, there is a dedicated project which allows you to automate deployments using Ansible. So there is a set of Ansible modules and playbooks to automate the deployment and the management of the network. So that is very convenient piece if you have some automated actions, like let's say Git actions or something, to deploy your peers or to operate your network.
Like if you have a CI script running which automatically triggers whenever some action
Correct.
happens, right? Got it.
Yeah, exactly. So
And
it is very convenient, and those are different projects, not necessarily available as part of the console. They are dedicated projects that you can use. However, they are not still specifically the Ansible modules and playbooks. They're not part of the Hyperledger Labs um, project.
mhm.
They're outside, but it doesn't matter. Those are related and made to be used together with Fabric Operation Console.
Yeah, and like when you said IBM open sourced the software because it was like very similar to what they had developed, and
Mhm.
that made me remember that last week only I made a video on how to convince your management to open source the product you've built, and in that I was discussing about the fact that, for example, say you are uh, the managing director and I am a developer, and I come to you with this idea that let's open source this project, and you'll like angrily stare at me and say that have you lost your mind because we've uh, like we've invested our time, energy, money, millions of dollars in developing our product, and now we should give it away for social good and everyone's benefit. So, yeah, what's your take on that? Like how people should approach open source and how it's not charity, but it's a great strategy to increase impact.
Well, it's technology nowadays is usually not a proprietary thing, right? So those things, if you want to see adoption in the world, in the enterprise and everywhere, open source is usually the way to go. It is a way for you, like let's say you have a piece of software
Mm,
and you have it internally,
yeah,
proprietary, hidden, and at the point, so there are a couple of benefits here, of course, but at the point you open source the software, there is no need to open source everything. Of course, there will be still
yeah,
pieces that are proprietary, like let's say with IBM, there are pieces of that console that integrate and are proprietary for their own cloud, right? So that means you don't really open completely everything,
mm,
but you want to open it into the piece that is generic enough to be used everywhere. So of course that gives you the opportunity to get that software adopted, and of course there are very different approaches how you can actually benefit out of it. Um, Either providing services on top of it, or providing automated deployments or whatnot that would benefit not just you but with the community as a whole.
essentially what Red
Um,
Hat did, right?
yes, exactly. Yeah.
Got
So
it.
those are different. Nothing comes for free, of course. There is a reason behind everything why it's open, but if because there is effort behind it to maintain that, and
Yeah,
this effort is not usually paid, right? Usually companies dedicate developers to be full time on those projects that they open source, so they can keep on maintaining them. Again, in the context of another open source,
hmm,
non-profit organization or something, but
yeah,
it is still an expense after the project's been open sourced for the companies to maintain.
cool. Great take on that.
Mm.
Now let's move forward. So, like, how does the Fabric Operations Console specifically support enterprise-grade blockchain applications? For example, I run a blockchain business, so what benefits do I get in terms of management and monitoring when I use Fabric Operations Console?
Hmm. Yeah. So as I explained before, it's all about simplicity. How fast you can bootstrap a network for example. And it is not just that. It is about training your team, getting the experts that do understand what it is to deploy a fabric and maintain and
Yeah.
operate and govern the fabric network. There are different ways to achieve that, but each of those ways come at a cost, and it's not a small cost because it requires whoever is doing it to have a very deep knowledge, not just into the particular cloud provider the company is using, but also about the fabric. Um, and it is not just it's about deployment, but it's also about operating the network. That is very different, for example, from client server architecture or web application deployment. It is a very different approach. So you need to have understanding of what you're dealing with before you start. And of course, that takes a lot of scripting, a lot of coding,
Hmm.
to achieve it.
Yeah.
And if you want to govern the network, for example, it takes a lot of command line commands that you need to run, for example, to make it happen. Whereas in the Fabric Operation Console, those things are very intuitive. You see in the UI, you have everything visually represented for you. So the time for you to prepare or to get understanding, to get up and running with that, it's very small. Therefore, the cost of operating the network is significantly reduced.
So you
Um,
abstracted out all the complexity which people had to deal with, and the
exactly. Yeah,
CLI commands and the complicated orchestration and stuff, right?
correct. Yes.
Got
So
it.
you can do that through the console, and
A
of
very
course,
intuitive UI.
yes, it is a very intuitive UI and gives you the the full set of capabilities to govern the network, which to me is one of the most important things. Deploying a network is more or less one-time job. You go through that complexity. It's okay. You make it up and running. That's fine. But then to operate the network, it's a living thing, right? So it's not just one-time setup. You need to take care of upgrade, certificate rotation, for example, if it expires. Upgrades of smart contracts, adding, removing organizations. All of those projects, they're mini projects. I can call them definitely
Yeah.
mini projects. Are complex, and that complexity is just because it is a distributed ledger. So it requires actions and it requires a sequence of operations that are performed and are executed by the different organizations that are currently on the network. And of course, each of those organizations will have their own subset of nodes that may run on a completely different infrastructures, right? So there is no one set of scripts to rule them all because it's just the nature of the infrastructure is different. So I've been on projects where companies use AWS, others use Azure, and they want to run their fabric nodes into different ways. One goes with dedicated containers, um, another with Docker, third company uses Kubernetes. So all of those things usually requires uh, for you to be very consistent and transparent across organizations. And the Fabric Operation Console gives you that capability through their network governance of the channel.
Got it. So
Okay.
that makes you explain that Fabric Operations Console is agnostic of any tech stack you use or any deployment framework you use. It will work even if you use Docker, Kubernetes, Helm charts, anything,
Exactly.
right? Cool.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Very
So
interesting.
it is very easy and convenient. So you can actually define and agree on the governance process within your network with your partners by using that Fabric Operation Console as a tool, to achieve that transparency. And of course, it will be much easier to educate and um, to perform the process, um, the governance process across organizations.
Sure.
Okay.
Um,
Um,
yeah, I think now we should come to the high-level overview of the architecture, the technical
mhm, mhm.
architecture, the core components, and how it all interacts with each other.
Yes. So there is a very it's a bit of I'll just touch base on the high level essentials uh, just to explain uh, what it is and what it is doing. So here you have the console that is accessible through the browser. As I explained, it's an API driven approach here, so you could use Ansible or just um, many other means of calling the APIs to achieve what the
Yeah,
console UI is doing. So you do have the console container deployed here that keeps some state in CouchDB. So this is essentially to keep the model of the network, like the peers, the orders, and of those fabric components. So they're stored in the database, so the console would know what the model is of your network. So this is where they are stored, regardless if you are if you are deploying through the console or you're importing, let's say, a peer, a Hyperledger Fabric peer, its definition more or less things like API endpoints, name, is actually stored in the CouchDB. CouchDB, it's not. Let's not get confuse it with the Hyperledger CouchDB that the peer is using to store the key value pairs and the channel data. It has nothing to do with that. It is just a keep of metadata of description of the peer, as I explained. Essentially, that ends up being the um, API URLs to the peer, so the console can govern that peer. So we have the very important component here that sits in the middle between the console and the peer. The console doesn't talk directly to the peer per se when it is using the gRPC as protocol. It is rather requiring a gRPC web proxy. It is nothing more than a proxy that translates the gRPC into a REST protocol and vice versa. So it is um, a way for the console to work with HTTP
yeah.
REST protocol and still being translated into gRPC through that console that container in the middle. It's just a proxy, very tiny small container that usually needs to be deployed in front of the peer or the order. Of course, there is no gRPC web proxy between the console and the certificate authority because the Hyperledger Fabric certificate authority is already REST-based
Okay, so
API
it
enabled.
accepts the input in the format which the console is giving. So it does not need a
Yeah,
proxy. Got it.
yeah, exactly. And of course, you have the another container here that is the config tools. It's essentially to prepare things like, oh yeah, let's prepare a Genesis block of a channel for the peer. So it
Mhm.
is something that you would usually use in Hyperledger Fabric through a command line, for example, to create the definition of a new channel or the genesis block of a new channel. It's just an example, one of the capabilities of that tool here. So the console is using it through its REST APIs to consume the functionality instead of executing command lines or things like that. So um, then it is talking about the the fabric containers here. So have in mind that fabric infrastructure can be anything. So those peers and orders and certificate authority can run anywhere. So this is a complete abstraction here that we are talking about through web APIs between the console and the peers. That allows actually the console to use to import peers that operate and run into different infrastructures. So the console per se does not know where that peer lives. There is another component to here, which is part of the console, which is called the Kubernetes operator and Kubernetes deployer. Those two components work in together to actually orchestrate the deployment of peer order and certificate authority on Kubernetes cluster. Okay? That is that is now very Kubernetes specific, but you can think of it as an add-on to the console that allows you to actually um, not just control the peer order and certificate authorities, but also to deploy them as you wish, whenever you like, on Kubernetes. But of course, it requires you to use Kubernetes. So if you
Yeah.
use Docker, that piece is not integrating with Docker. It is a pure, very native Kubernetes implementation that helps you essentially to, like, let's say you want to add a new peer to your um, set of peers. So you can do that easily through the console by using the deployer and the fabric operator on Kubernetes. Of course, if you use Docker or any other, tool to deploy,
Sure.
you will have to go your own way and then just import the definition of your peer in the console, so the console can still manage the peer in terms of deploying chain code, installing chain code, for example, or making a peer join a channel, or making a peer an anchor peer. All of those fabric native operations are supported through the console, regardless of the infrastructure where those components are deployed.
Deploy. Cool. Yeah.
Okay. So after I can actually give you a short demo through the console. So we've been talking now about features, but I would say uh,
Get our hands
let's
dirty.
let's put our hands on it. So in my case, it's just to get you a better understanding what it is. I do have um, my my orders, certificate authority, and peer deployed on AWS. Um, it is using Docker, so it's not on Kubernetes. And you see the console still operates and is able to manage it, to manage those nodes. So it's very lean deployment. I'm actually using 3 machines where I have one that runs the console, one that runs the orderer and the order certificate authority, and one that runs the peer and the peer certificate authority. So 3 tiny machines with one Linux 1 GB of memory. So what is that? What the console looks like? So essentially, that is your first landing screen where you can see the nodes. You have 3 sections here. You have the section for the peers. Of course, you can manage through the console multiple Hyperledger Fabric MSPs and multiple peer certificate authorities and ordering services. So you you can see that I'm having one peer here and one ordering service with 4 certificate authorities. So actually, why I have 4? So I have two for each of those sets or pairs of certificate authorities are for one for the peer and one for the MSP of the ordering service. So one set usually contains the root certificate authorities, which issues the certificates for the users of the MSP, including the peers and the peer admin, for example, and one which is a TOS dedicated, which issues the TOS certificates for those identities. So that's why I have a pair of 2 certificate authorities for each of my MSPs.
Sure.
So inside I have a dedicated section for my channel. So the good thing is that the Fabric Operation Console still support, or like kind of supports, the older version of the Hyperledger Fabric workflow, which is the 1.4, where we had different, so things got improved through the years in Fabric. So that's why we had different ways of managing channels now, which is more convenient and more performant. So I have the channel overview where I can see my channel, like what is the version, capabilities, block height, and I also can peek into the transactions that are available on the channel, which is the block history here. I have channel details that tells me what are the nodes that are currently joined on that channel and what is the ordering service that is serving the
The nodes. Yeah.
the nodes. And I have the channel members. Usually, if I have a multiple production deployment, I would have every organization having their own instance of that console.
Hmm.
So very separated. They won't have anything in between. No central database or something, but they will still see for example, the channel members, and I would see here probably multiple organizations on that channel, not just the organization I'm managing. Yep. Uh,
Sure.
so the next thing I have the smart contracts again. That is 1.4 legacy. The new way of actually seeing the smart contracts is through the channel. So this is where you have the smart contract definition. So from here, for example, I can select and deploy, install, or submit a proposal for a new chain code deployment, for example, if I want to. Okay, so I can install a smart contract, choose an existing package that's already available on the peer, or just pick a tar file that contains my chain code, so I can deploy it on my peer. I won't go through the process now, but it is just for the purpose of showing what the console is capable of. So that works. All of those Hyperledger Fabric specific steps and operations, they work regardless if it's Kubernetes, if it's Docker, if it's a cloud provider, and regardless of the infrastructure that's being used behind.
Hmm. And
Um,
in the part where you were doing the smart contract and you had to choose the existing smart contract or create a new one. So in the existing, do you offer some boilerplate smart contracts like some basic pre-written like demo kind
the
of?
existing smart contract means that it's already available on the peer. So, for
All
example,
right,
yeah,
got
you can deploy the package of the chain code. So
it. Uh-huh.
usually the first step that you do is to upload the package to your peer. Okay,
Sure.
so this is just the source code of your chain code or smart
Okay.
contract. And just to put a note here, that package, depending on how you configure your fabric, may have different contents. It depends if you run the chain code as a service, or you have some other handler as part of your Hyperledger node that handles the deployment of the chain code. So that package is very specific, not that much to the
Got it.
console, but rather to the Hyperledger Fabric peer setup.
Yeah, now I got
So
the
yeah,
right context.
so that's how that's what it means. You can deploy, install. So that is kind of multiple step process. First is to install the package, meaning you end up sending that package to your peer, and then to instantiate the chain code, because the same chain code, the same source code of kind of chain code, can be deployed on multiple channels, right? Where multiple or different set of multiple organizations are available. So that's why you may want to select an existing package instead of deploying,
A new one.
installing a new, the same
Yeah,
old. That's the purpose of it. Okay.
understood.
So
Cool.
so you have the wallet here, and this is the Fabric wallet. So there are two notions here, two implementations right now, and I'm just really very proud that we recently contributed a HashiCorp Vault-based wallet. The wallet that you're seeing here is the default one, which is um, uh, the 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 wallet that lives inside your browser, in your local browser store. So essentially, those are the certificates and the private keys of your identities. Usually, those identities are used to orchestrate or manage the peer, for example, or control your certificate authority, which allows you to register and enroll new users, or clients, or peers and orders. So those, usually, to operate the peer, you need a peer admin. To operate the certificate authority, you need the admin of the certificate authority, and this is where those private keys and certificates are available for you. Um, if you configure the console with to use HashiCorp Vault, of course, you need to have HashiCorp Vault somewhere running first of all, and then the console will go and fetch and store the certificates not inside the browser store, but inside the HashiCorp Vault. That will give you the opportunity, the capability of fetching those, storing and fetching and using those identities in a secure way. So
Got it.
one of the advantages is that you can actually use the console from any browser as soon as you have access to it. Whereas if you're having those identities stored in your local browser storage, this means you will have to import, export them whenever you change your browser or computer, for example, which is inconvenient in some cases.
Yeah.
So you have here an overview of the organizations. So essentially, I have two. Those are essentially the MSPs, Hyperledger Fabric MSP definitions. And as you see, it's just the name, what peers are part of it, and very generic information about the organizations. Here I have a basic access method. So essentially here I can use the a different authentication method. If I set up the console, it can use, if I recall right, OAuth2 protocol. By default, it's using the CouchDB based authorization, user management um, implementation for the console, but I can do OAuth2 integration. It's a question of configuration, configuring properly the console. And as you remember, I explained it's an API-based
Hmm.
API-based software, so I can create an API key with different permissions here, roles like manager, writer, reader, so it can be used
So
through
we have different
some other means.
authorization levels.
Yes, I can. It we call that a role. So
Yeah.
you do have the. If I have the access, you see the admin. I can add a new user, for example, and I have those three roles to consider. So a manager, a writer, and a reader. Essentially, manager means they can add, remove, give access, take access. Writer means they can actually manage the network, do changes on it, and the reader is just reading. No permissions to change anything in the console. So
The role-based
that's
access
essentially the
control.
the three roles available out of the box for us in the console. So this is completely user management. You don't confuse that with the Hyperledger Fabric management. The way of managing identities and access. It has nothing to do with that. It is just for the operation console users.
Yeah, these are the basic principles of role-based access control implementation.
To a point, yes. It is not full-fledged implementation of. There is no access control list.
Uh-huh.
So probably there's one of the things in the future we can think of, enhancing the console. It is a very, lean and simple set of roles you can configure, as I explained. It is not, that much of a the implementation of the access control lists and all
Sure,
those.
that's on the radar for the future. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
cool.
You have some audit, some logs here, you see, which is a very nice enterprise feature. Um, um, it's very capable and enterprise ready piece of software, which is super. And you have the settings here. You can do actually import and export. So bulk data management, for example, you can export all components like fabric components, identities. You can export the definition of the peers, order certificate authorities, and import them into different console if you want to, or import. As I explained before, it allows you to import fabric components that are deployed somewhere else. So you can start managing them if you want to.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is essentially what a console capabilities are. And one very important thing here to mention, very powerful thing, is that you can once you go to the channels. So this is where, for example, you can start managing the channel. Like, for example, you have a completely very detailed and powerful way of managing everything on the channel. For example, you can actually select let me see, this is okay. So, for example, I can select the organizations. I can
Mhm.
add or remove organizations that are on the channel here, right? So, as you see here, I can remove the MSP. That's already on the channel. And once that every organization runs this console in their own environment, they actually they communicate between each other through internet. So company one and company two may have their own dedicated instances of the console, and they will communicate between each other to send notifications. For example, when a signature is required by other organizations to change the permission on channel, for example, to add a new organization or remove an existing one. So here you can build your proposal for the channel change, and then once you submit, you will get a notification. You see this little thing here, which is notification, oh, archive closed and whatnot. So once you do that, a notification for you will pop up, and you will see what the other organization is suggesting as a change, and you will have the capability to actually sign that change or reject it, of course, not signing it, and submit it on the network, so the next organization can add their own signature. And finally, someone, after collecting all the required signature as per the Hub Ledger Fabric rules, can commit the transaction and commit the channel change update on the network, which is an awesome feature. If you are about to do that manually with command line interface,
Mhm.
you need to go through some really complex steps to achieve that. And again, organization to organization, it may look quite different because of the way they set up their networks locally. And through the console, you don't really need to be a technical guy to 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 to, to achieve that. You just need to know, well, a bit of fabric, how it works, what is the model, but that's it. No coding experience, nothing. You can be just a plain functional guy to perform the operation and the governance of the network. Okay.
Got it. Yeah. Cool.
And I have one slide for the HashiCorp Vault wallet. So as I explained, one of the reasons why this is in place is because those identities here that I just showed. Let me just go back here to the identities to the wallet. So they live in a browser. So for example, if I log into the same um, with the same user. So let me, I can't tell right now, but if I clear the cache of my browser, those identities will be gone. And
Okay.
there are cases where I don't really want that. So I want to
Hmm.
keep those identities secure in my local store, which is might be HashiCorp Vault. Of course, you may want to use HSM. That's another story. But usually, HashiCorp Vault gives you a very secure way of keeping those very
Identities.
sensitive data,
Yeah.
secured. So that is the reason, one of the reasons why we went ahead with that contribution. So we wanted to have those private keys stored securely, and of course, whenever from wherever you log into the console, you want to have access to those identities and not just export them and then send, through email or some share or something, which, you're dealing with private keys. You don't want to, sending private keys here and
Yeah.
there like that. So that's why we wanted to connect to HashiCorp Vault to as a component for each organization to store those keys. Okay, so yeah, that was it as an overview of the console. Um, and probably as a next step, I can walk you through the code base. It's
So not your keys, not your wallet.
yeah. Yeah, so this is the GitHub. This is very essential place to start.
Sure.
And because it explains, it has a lot of information inside, a lot of things that will guide you not just to understand what is the console, but also what is the structure of the code, how it's been built, what are the components, and actually it explains what is what, why it is there, and it also includes some very useful recordings that have been done through the years by different guys, maintainers, or guys like me, contributors. Um, so this is very essential part, and I would definitely suggest that whoever is starting with the console, just for the purpose of using it, or hopefully to fix bugs or contribute features, is a great way to start. Just to read through it. It is not just through the first page. There are different here explanation, like let me show you what is, for example, gRPC web. Why it is there and what it is doing. What are the different packages? So, for example, if you go under the packages, you will see that it's Apollo, Athena, Fabric Deployer, gRPC Web Proxy, those things that I talked about. You remember the Fabric Deployer that integrates with Fabric Operator that manages things on Kubernetes. So, for example, in the Apollo package, it explains what it is, how to start it, and very very useful things about the code. So you can actually browse through the repository, and under the docs, you can get the APIs. So here you can see the APIs detail, the Swagger file, and very very convenient. A lot of information, technical and very very powerful. Documentation that's available in there. Um, yeah. So that's that's all about the Git repository. I would strongly suggest whoever is starting with it, just to go through
Mhm.
that repository first. There are plenty of links there to start with.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um,
And maybe fork
And
it and try to implement it locally.
yeah, it's you can run that locally easily. Again, most of the things that you see here, actually, if you follow the steps, it's a pure um, Docker deployment. So it does bring up a Fabric network for you. You know, just set up network. Those are regular scripts that come from the test network of Hyperledger Fabric itself. And the console it just gives you that documentation here gives you an idea of what to do after you bring up the test network up local. Or you can actually run the the console and then import export those components so you can have everything locally up and running.
Uh-huh. So yeah, this is great that the essential getting started steps are given in the repository README itself.
Right. Yeah.
Makes it so
Yeah.
much easier.
Yeah. And of course, I would suggest if someone wants to deal with that, to deploy that on Kubernetes, on a cloud provider, not just locally, to explore the Fabric operator, which is another repository, not directly. So I'll show you under Hyperledger Labs. There is Fabrica here. Fabric. Um, Okay, so there is the Fabric operator, which is a dedicated repository. This is the piece of component. It's a Kubernetes operator. It's
Hmm.
a piece of thing that you need to have on Kubernetes up and running in order to use the console and its full capabilities on
Got
Kubernetes.
it.
So this is another thing to explore. And of course, if you want to install those things, there is the Ansible playbooks. So they are part of a dedicated repository. Let me see if I had the link to those Ansible. Uh, yeah. So it has the Ansible playbooks. Sorry, that is the link hasn't been updated, but
So that is for the
there is
contributors to
the
do. Like it's a
yeah
good
yeah yeah.
first issue.
hmm Um, so let me just search. So that's uh, Fabric Ansible collection. Okay, so this is actually yeah, it is in the Hyperledger Labs. It got moved. Sorry, it's my understanding. It got moved before. It wasn't the case. It wasn't in the same repository, but it got moved into Hyperledger Labs.
Hmm.
So I want to correct myself. I forgot about that. But yeah, the before they were in IBM dedicated repository, but recently they got moved into Hyperledger Labs. So this is where your Fabric Ansible collection is available. To actually, it gives you a way to deploy the Fabric operator, Fabric console, everything on Kubernetes. Actually, you have plenty of playbooks here that you can use um, um, to deploy the Fabric console and to use it through Ansible. So those are the playbooks, for example, deploying the Fabric console, deploying the Fabric operator, and you have plenty of modules that are native Ansible modules that gives you the capability of using the Fabric Operation console through Ansible with the dedicated modules. Instead of course, you could do curl and call a REST API, but with those modules, it's very convenient, specifically if you are using Ansible to achieve it in a much easier and transparent way, and it's much cleaner code. Okay, so those are very essential repository. Fabric console, if you're dealing with Kubernetes and not just Kubernetes, I would suggest Fabric operator. as a second repository and the third repository to explore the Ansible playbooks that come with that come for Fabric Operation Console. It gives you a lot of capability.
Capabilities, yeah.
Yeah, so it's a very capable and a very powerful ecosystem of couple of repositories around Fabric Operation Console. So for me, that was a challenge. Honestly, that's why I'm like very much stressing on those things because I got
Uh-huh.
confused. What is operator console? What is different things? And those three major components are the starting points. So I use them a lot through my projects to actually to make the console work into different environments.
Got it.
Okay.
Great. So, yeah, coming to the contribution aspect of it, if I
Mm-hmm.
am a contributor and I want to get involved with the like operations console, which is the contribution which is most needed at the moment? Is it like the bug fixes in the code base, or some new feature needs to be added, documentation, or simplifying the user
Uh,
experience or support? Where do I?
I
And
There are a couple of things, of course. One major thing I would say is the support for the latest Fabric release, which is 3.x something. So this to me is not immediate, but it will come pretty much soon. So I would say that there is a need for someone to to help to get help on getting that done with the different type of ordering service, right? So it's the ordering service is using a different consensus protocol right now. It's not Raft anymore, and yeah, those things needs to be integrated in the console so it can become 3.0 capable. Of course, there are things that I would suggest on the documentation. It could be a
mm,
more transparent in terms of what you need, for example, to do exactly to deploy to Kubernetes, because that was and still is a challenge. Third one is support on the official channels like Discord, for
yeah,
example. That is very essential. People facing problems sometimes. They unfortunately, various reasons, it may not get a proper answer or an answer at all, and that's a challenge for adoption because we need to be more
make sure that the community
active.
thrives and
Yeah, as a community, exactly. Because someone comes
yeah,
in, gives it a try, faces a small issue, and then starts asking here and there, and you get nothing or something, but not on time, and that's a problem because you just
yeah,
say,
that's
oh, it doesn't
discouraging.
work, and yeah, and usually it's not the case. Of course, sometimes it doesn't work but usually it's your own mistake. That's my experience. Of course, there are little bugs here and there that are not, like, let's say, features that are not um, um,
Supposed to last any long.
polished. Yeah, you can do a small mistake, and then it's very hard for you to find and the cost.
Yeah,
The side effect could be completely unexpected. And you may need to dig a long time to find what is your mistake to make it work. Those things. So those are things that usually you do have. How that works. If you find an issue or you want to contribute a new feature, it is managed um, through GitHub issues. Okay, so if I go here and Operation Console, so usually what you can do is you go through issues and This is where you can actually create a new issue. Okay, and uh, that's how the project will get aware, either in a more transparent way, that there is a problem. But again, I would suggest before opening such thing to try through the other channels like Discord or yeah, Discord, mainly Discord, to get in touch with the community so you can get your problem resolved before
Mhm.
opening an issue, and because it can lead to quite of a process after to close it. And um, so that's a very important step.
Yeah, and we have like all these issues which are open. So if someone wants to contribute, they can have a look at it and try to
Right.
reply them in the thread.
Correct. Correct. Some of those issues are not relevant anymore. In there, the project definitely needs help. It needs contribution. Some of those, as I explained, are not relevant anymore, uh, so they not needs to be closed. I guess kind of a cleanup thing at some point of time should happen. So you see, many of them are very old, and to me they seem irrelevant anymore, or something that is not. Um, it just needs to be closed.
Yep.
Many of those things are irrelevant. Um, but it needs someone to give it a try, and try to reach out to the person who opened the issue. I guess
Sure.
if something's been open for 2 years now,
Yeah.
it's probably not good anymore. Yeah.
Sure. And like if I want to stay updated with what's happening in the Fabric operations consoles and I want to stay connected to the community, one thing you told is that we have a pretty active, thriving Discord community. And
Yeah.
additionally, do we have some community call or monthly or weekly meetup kind of thing where we meet and
Yeah, we
discuss?
do. We do have meetups. That's one of the things that is also important. So, for example, the yeah, I have a couple of links here. You can see, for example, we have the centralized Linux Foundation decentralized meetup. So you
Sure.
can actually sign up for a newsletter or a trust. It's more of a generic thing for many projects, but sometimes things come up for the Fabric Operation Console. So this is it's a good start, and of course there is email groups that also is another option, because not all people, the people in the community follow all channels. So I would say, if there is something, try Discord, try the email groups, try the sign up for something, watch a recording, or sign up for a meetup, or just ask for a meetup or something. We if there is a need for those things, of course, it's not just always been about being proactive, but
Hmm.
it's always about serving a demand. So if people want to see something and want to have a discussion, just don't hesitate and reach out
Yeah, like feel free to
through
lurk in.
different channels. Yeah, exactly,
It's pretty
exactly.
inclusive and
So
people
if we
are
want
willing
to
to.
do a recording, if we want to do a meetup, we can organize that quickly. That's not a problem.
Great. Sounds very interesting and like yeah. Like inclusion is the essence of the ethos of any open source project. So
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
we
So I
live
would
up to
would
that.
say yes. Sign up for those things,
Yeah.
newsletters and meetups, so you can get notifications when something is coming, or just go and ask for it. We will arrange, if there is a topic that the people are interested in and want to deep dive and discuss. We can do that as well. And of course, you can always arrange a meeting with the maintainers on the project, if that's needed. Just drop a message on Discord, and we'll see what we can do about it.
And like if I want to give some suggestion, like something that I feel should be a new next feature or something which can make the interface even better. Like I should open an issue on GitHub for that, or I should
Yeah,
let you know.
yeah, I
Yeah.
would suggest open an issue, and take it from there. And by I myself, did that couple of times. You open an issue and you come up with implementation, so it becomes a nice contribution.
Yeah.
Usually, you create a problem, you solve it.
Very interesting and very relatable also. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I think everyone has done that.
Yeah.
Cool. And yeah, so I think we've discussed pretty much everything, and now we come to the last question, which is that in your view, what can be done to encourage more participation and contributions in the wider Hyperledger community or even the uh, macro blockchain community? So it's not like very specific to console or to even Hyperledger. Just to increase contributions, what should be like more engagement? What should be the things one should care of?
Yeah, well, so uh, it is more to me one very important thing for any project. It's about being transparent and showing real use cases or real life projects. I was in the when was it, like 2 months ago, 1 month ago. It was like recent on the Hyperledger, sorry, decentralized trust membership member summit.
The new
And
branding is still
yeah,
not.
yeah, it's yeah, I'm still like, uh, and the yeah, it was very interesting, and we had one of, at least from my point of view, one of the most important sessions were about projects, existing projects, successful projects, projects that are in production, projects that use the technology and they show the benefits. So
Sure.
we can talk about more about business, getting, because all the demand will come, with awareness. It will come with showcasing implementations, showcasing software that solves problems and is beneficial to the organizations or to the businesses who's using it. So those sessions, to me, that there were a couple of them in the community, were amazing sessions because I got to know, that banks move now assets on Hyperledger Fabric in production. This is an awesome news. I learned about projects that failed, which is again good. So you don't
Yeah.
you don't have to repeat those mistakes. Trying to solve all problems with the same technology. It doesn't make sense, right? So that's how your learning comes at
It's
the
the
same
best
time.
teacher. Like success is a very lousy teacher, as
Right,
they say.
right. Or another project which is about gaming, and it's an awesome use. Actually, one of the CEO guy there of the company was so excited, talking about why this technology helps them and how they use it, and he was very right to the point, exactly, overlapping with the way I see it. And more we are talking about those things, more interest will be there in the community
Community,
and
yeah.
across business organizations. So of course we need to reach out more to business people, not just technical.
That
That's
energy is
that's very,
contagious.
yeah, exactly. And
Cool.
once it comes, once we have more and more of those showcases,
Hmm.
those production projects, more interest will come and more people will try to support. And now we have the tools actually to face that. It wasn't the case years ago. It wasn't the case. It was very tough, very hard, very expensive, and that turns people away because you want to do a POC and you say, "Oh, the complexity is so huge that I cannot imagine, investing into that technology with a questionable outcome." just for the purpose of trying new things. It just doesn't work like that.
Got it.
And now we have the tools to face that. We have the tools to reduce the cost, reduce the
Uh,
learning curve, make it visual, because it's much easier to sell something when it's visual instead of showing. For technical people, it's probably fine and cool, but for business people, it's not the way,
got
right?
it.
So
Yeah.
it's about value and business outcome, than showing cool technical stuff and magic behind the screen.
Yeah. Very fascinating. Very interesting. Cool. That brings us to the end of this very insightful session,
Thanks,
particularly the
President, for
most, yeah, cool. The most insightful session which any maintainer has done so far with us at the LFDT. So, yeah, thank you for taking the time to do this, and I loved it. Great.
yeah. Thank you, Pradam. It was very nice of you organizing and getting me into that. I'm very happy and to to get that information out in the community. And yeah, let's do something similar in the future again. So we'll see where that leads us.
Cool. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining and happy contributing.
Thank
Yeah.
you, guys. Bye.